regulatory outcomes, and the RIC will work towards ensuring that all stakeholders are afforded an opportunity to express their views on matters and to be a part of the regulatory decision-making process, and to also ensure that adequate and accurate information is shared between stakeholders and the RIC. Today, we also would like to note there are two stations to your left, my right. We have a conservation corner that will have a presentation of energy efficiency devices, energy conservation devices, and we also have a bill calculation station where members of the audience here today, if you have a commercial or residential bill, with the new proposed rates, you can have an idea of what your bill could look like. I would also like to introduce my co-host today, Mr. Jason George, and my name is Teresa Ramjan. I'm the Corporate Communications Manager here at the Regulated Industries Commission. It's now my pleasure to invite Mrs. Dawn Callender, Chairman of the Regulated Industries Commission, to deliver some welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, fellow citizens of Tobago East, attending here today at Belle Garden Multi-Purpose Facility. Welcome, and thank you for attending and giving us the opportunity to fulfill our mandate on the consultation process and working from the draft determination towards getting to the final determination. This is the second of our two Tobago face-to-face meetings, and we are also simultaneously on a virtual platform. It is the fourth in our series of public meetings, and in addition, today we took the opportunity being here in Tobago to meet with various special interests and important organizations such as the THA and the Tobago arm of the TT Chamber. Before the end of the 12 weeks consultation, we will return to meet with other chambers and other special interest groups that we could not address on this visit. Following this week's activities, this is our last meeting for this week. We will go to Chaguanas, then Port of Spain, Diego Martin, and San Fernando. And those are planned over the next 2 weeks. So we urge persons who may be listening on Facebook to keep looking at our social media pages, and we will post dates of those upcoming meetings. I want to reiterate the RIC's intention to consult throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. And in fact, we really look forward to returning here to do those follow-up meetings. These public consultations, such as the one you're attending now, are designed to provide a platform for citizens who do not have a more organized outlet, such as maybe being able to speak in Parliament, or who are members of the special interest groups or other persons who can have, who can call a press conference. So we've already been in touch with those stakeholders, and we look forward to those meetings, but we also look forward to these meetings when we can hear from the citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. We remind you that your attendance here today is an important part of the entire exercise. Before the RIC can change and revise any rates, we must produce that draft document I mentioned before. It is available on our website in long form and with an executive summary, and we must also come out and solicit the views of as wide an audience as possible. As you will hear again this afternoon into evening, the objectives of the consultation are to clarify any aspect of the rate review as documented in the draft determination, to obtain feedback from members of the public, and to recognize the concerns that our customers wish, or the T&TEC customers, I should say, wish to express, and really to clarify and include any area that we may have omitted. Let me assure you, the consultations are real, and we thank persons who have already provided feedback, comment, and recommendations to us that far. In fact, I can share with you that we have come out with a very open mind, and so far we have already taken away 4 points where we believe we should go back, do some further evaluation before we get to the final. We urge that you continue to provide that type of feedback, as it's an important step in fulfilling our mandate. Our mandate is somewhat limited, as you will hear later on, but where we are not able to provide you with an answer directly because we don't have the authority to commit other agencies or stakeholders, we will be taking your comments away, and we've already secured the commitment of those stakeholders to respond to those concerns and to provide us with their comments in writing by around the 10th or something in March, so they can make their way into the final determination. So there may be some comments you may hear say that that may be something for T&TEC to address. We take a note, we'll take it away. So too, any comment that would require the attention of the Ministry of Public Utilities. As you heard, we've also provided resources here for you to get some information and get what I consider a private consultation on your individual bill. As well, you can visit the efficiency station and maybe take some notes of ideas that you may wish to use to reduce the impact of any rate increase we may come up with at the end of the day. The equipment you will see on the efficiency corner, these are just ideas. It's not a full list of everything that's available. So you may also wish to take away some of that information, do a little further research, and find the product that may be more suited to your needs. In terms of the consultation, we have added 2 members on our team because sometimes we realize that the questions may be about electricity systems and so. So you've just heard that we've added Mr. Selcrest's husband. He is a power engineer and an energy consultant, and he will be able to answer several of the questions that may come up concerning other forms of electricity and so on, and other forms of items for the generation mix. We also have virtually an economist, Dr. Michelle Salandi, and she is online and available to address questions related to economics and so on. It's also my pleasure to introduce the RIC's Executive Director, Mr. Glenn Kahn, who would now give you a full presentation about what's in the draft determination and how we went about thinking of coming up with the ideas in that document. So welcome, and thank you for your time and your interest. We look forward to having a positive experience and to addressing as many of your concerns that we can address immediately. Thank you very much.
Afternoon all. Well, the chairman said a full presentation, but it's actually a summarized version, not a full presentation. Because we intend to really hear from you rather than to talk to you all the time. If we talk to you, it's in responding to something that you ask. So the time is really allotted for you to bring your concerns and your ideas, your suggestions to us. So my presentation is condensed. Okay? So the chairman said that you'd hear a little more about why we are here consulting. So you have here that the objective is to clarify any areas of the draft determination. I see one of our friends from last night here who asked me a question on this. To obtain feedback from you on the proposals which are contained in the draft determination, and to acknowledge concerns and other issues relevant through the draft determination that we have not included in our determination. We hope to provide you with a better understanding of issues in the determination, to receive your comments and proposals on issues raised in the determination, and to hear from you any issues that we have omitted which you think are important to be in the draft determination. Before I go into this slide, so I'll take it off, I'll tell you that there are a few things in the law. There are a few things in the law I want you to know, because these things are what we are going to focus on during the consultation. So you must understand that everything we do is consistent with what is in the RIC Act number 16 of 1998. The first one, section 6.1, is that the commission, which means the Board of Commissioners, must ensure, as far as is reasonably practicable, that the service provided by a service provider, in this case T&TEC, operating under prudent and efficient management, will be on terms that will allow the service provider to earn sufficient return, to finance necessary investment. So one of our responsibilities is to ensure that T&TEC has sufficient funds to finance investment. Another one is, that's H, to establish the principles and methodologies by which the service providers determine rates and services. So the approach that we use, we are supposed to establish that. So keep that in mind. And the third thing, J, we are enjoined to carry out periodic reviews of rating regimes of service providers. This activity is a periodic review. The period is every 5 years. So keep that in mind, so you know that we are strictly following law as regards what we are doing here. I'll read two other things for you. Section 67.3. The RIC must consider and have regard to the funding and ability of the service provider, T&TEC, to perform its functions. So we must be concerned about whether T&TEC can supply you with reliable, efficient services. Keep that in mind. And the other thing is, we must be concerned about the ability of consumers to pay rates. So that's you. So we have to be concerned whether the rates that we are setting are fair and reasonable as far as our analysis concerns. So this here shows you that for the last 5-year period up to 2021, T&TEC has not been doing very well financially. You can basically accept that if somebody is not, an entity is not doing well financially, it won't be able to provide you with reliable services because it doesn't have sufficient funds to do what it's supposed to do. And the first thing I read spoke about ensuring that they have sufficient funds to do their functions. So this clearly demonstrates that that has not been happening over the last 5-year period that we have financial statements for, right? So what you're seeing here now is the principles and methodologies that I spoke about that we have to establish in order to undertake our work in setting prices. So this is the approach that we use. We examine all of the expenditure and we attempt to come down to what we think are efficient costs using this approach. Okay? So you can see from this how we derive what is the gross revenue requirement, and we then take away from that any revenue that T&TEC collects from things which have nothing to do with servicing you. So they have pools that they collect revenue from. That has nothing to do with you. So we take that away from the revenue that they will collect from you. So that's why you see the red mark there. Okay? So one of the things that we are bound to do is to ensure that only efficient costs are passed on to you, customers, in rates. So in thinking about that, T&TEC requested the RIC they requested from the RAC funding to the tune of $29.1 billion over a 5-year period. When we examined their costs, we determined that there were inefficiencies in some of the areas of the costs, and you can see that to the right. Operating expenditure, which consists of things like the cost for fuel, the cost for conversion of fuel into energy, labor and staff costs, depreciation expenses, the pension plan, all those things. Those are part of the operating costs. So we determined that we can reduce that by $1.5 billion. We also reduced generation costs, fuel costs, and depreciation charges. So we reduced it by close to $2 billion. So in that way, we were looking at your interests in the sense that we are saying we don't want to pass on these costs to you because they are not efficient costs. Okay? This is just another description of what I just spoke about. It's in more detail. Okay, so you can see the actual numbers and what was taken out. So, there are two responsibilities that the RIC must focus on as a regulator. One is setting rates and charges, which is what we're coming to just now. And the other one is setting quality of service standards. The standards are set to ensure that you have quality services. But outside of the standards, there are other things that we do to ensure that your services are the standard that you expect. So one of them is to look at the reliability indicators that we have from analyzing T&TEC data. And we have noticed that in many parts of the country, customers experience between 3 and 29 outages per month. And those are unplanned outages, right? So we have said to T&TEC, look, you should not, no customer should experience more than 3 unplanned outages per month. If they are able to achieve that target, they will benefit from getting $7.5 million more in their revenue. If they can't achieve that target, $10 million will be taken away. So the penalty is greater than the reward. Okay? That's one way we're protecting your interests. We are going to establish something called center metrics. Many of you have difficulties when you call into T&TEC to report anything. You can't get to talk to anyone, or it takes very long. These are designed to hear or to find out information about how long it takes so that we can improve the services in that regard to you, right? We have the quality of service standard scheme. Now these are comprised of guaranteed standards and overall standards. The guaranteed standards are 8 in total, and these standards, if they are breached by T&TEC, which means if they don't comply with it strictly, you will be entitled as a residential customer to a compensation of $60 on your bill. The overall standards are more general in nature, so you can't get any compensation for them. But T&TEC still has to meet them because those are about things that affect everybody and not an individual. The guaranteed standards are about individuals. If you experience a problem alone, then you can be compensated because of that. We also have something called codes of practice. You can ask me a question about that later and I could elaborate on that a little more. But what these are designed to do is to ensure that when T&TEC is dealing with you as an individual customer, they treat you in a specific way. So if somebody is coming to visit your property, they must identify themselves with an ID card that you can verify that this is a T&TEC worker. They can't just come on your property and say T&TEC and do what they have to do. So the codes talk about things like those to ensure that when somebody comes by you, it is the right person visiting you to do something. There are other things, but I say you can ask about it and I can elaborate. We have also suggested that they do a customer satisfaction survey in 2025, and then you can send in your forms or respond to a phone call to find out or to give your views on how the service to you is. We've suggested reliability improvements, and funding for this has been provided in the CAPEX program to ensure that the 3 to 29 outages that I spoke about, that can be reduced. So we're providing funding for them to ensure that they can meet this 3 requirement. And several of their meters are becoming obsolete. They want to change out all of these meters, but we didn't allow them, or we're not providing funding to change out all the meters, because if we had done that, the price to you would have been a little higher. So we said, look, don't change all these meters, change only half at this point in time. And because of that, we reduced the free meter check from 5 years to 4 years. So if you have anything wrong with your meter, if you think something is wrong, you can have a free meter check once every 4 years. So we get to the prices now. So on the left, let me see if it's left. Yes. On the left, what you have are the existing tiers and the existing rates. So currently, between 1 and 400 kilowatts, every 2 months, you pay 26 cents per kilowatt hour. Between 400 and 1,000, you pay 32 cents per kilowatt hour. Over 1,000, you pay 37 cents. Those are the existing rates, and you pay a bi-monthly fixed charge or customer charge of $6. What is on the right? Those are the proposals. The RIC has decided that we would like to move customers from bi-monthly bills to monthly bills. So the first tier, which is 1 to 200, is basically a half of what you had as your original first tier, 1 to 400. But the rate for that level now is 28 cents. In that category, there are about 90,000 customers. Okay? Those are the people who some people might say these are the lower income people. You know, people use other names, but we categorize those as the persons who should receive this benefit. But everybody gets it, because once you're a customer, you benefit from the first tier. But our focus really was on those persons who will be less able to afford high price energy by ensuring that they could at least get 200 kilowatts per month, kilowatt hours per month. And we have some information that shows the type of appliances that you can run using that level of consumption per month. So as we go down to get to 1,400, the second tier, the commissioners decided, look, we are going to expand that, because as you can see, the second tier started at 400 and ended at 1,000. This one, the second tier, is 200 to 700. So they expanded it by 200 to make a smaller second tier, so that you will pay not as much as if you had to pay only 3 tiers. So that was a sort of a benefit that customers in the second tier can achieve without going to the high end of 54 cents. So overall, as I said, the first 2 tiers cater to most people, because on average now, if somebody is consuming anywhere up to about 850, 889 kilowatt hours per month, right, that person falls within the category of a bill of $300 bi-monthly. And those persons with the bills under 300 bi-monthly are currently entitled to receive a discount on their bills of 35%. So that is something that you need to understand, right? And when we go down lower, what we are trying to do there with the rate set is to encourage conservation and discourage wastage of electricity. All of you, I'm sure, had experiences at home where you left on a light and you forgot to take it off. Sometimes people leave on an iron and forget to take it off. All of these things happen in people's house. They don't, not willfully that you're doing that, but they happen. And when those things happen, well, then you use up more energy. So it is intended to discourage people from wasteful consumption, but also to encourage them to look at conservation, how they can save on the energy. And the appliances that we have, the devices that we have at the back, we have some devices there which, when you go and look at it, the officer will show you how these things can be used to reduce your consumption. Okay? So this is a sample of a bill for somebody who currently uses 200 bi-monthly. So if you use 200 bi-monthly at this present time, you are paying $65.25 in total, which includes VAT. At 200, using the same bi-monthly thing, you'll be using, you're now paying $79.88. But if you go monthly, which is half of 200, you'll be paying $39.94 for 100 consumption. We also have a table there which tells you if somebody is spending $100, what appliances they can run. So that's something we can talk to you from the table. Okay, so you get an idea of what your bill could look like. And this is if you had a bill of $800 bi-monthly, you'd have been paying $267. You remember just now I talked about over 800 kilowatts and it would be less than 300. So persons currently with the 800 kilowatts bi-monthly, they get a discount of 35%. We don't know what the approaches will be by the government. We can't speak for them, but that is what happens now, right? So if these persons are transferred to the monthly billing cycle, that would be 400, half of the 800, and you'd now be paying at the proposed rates, 161.44. Now I want to stress, all of these are proposed rates. These have not been decided, okay? We are talking to you, hearing your concerns. We are going to go back and examine everything that has been said before the commissioners come up with what the final determination. So don't go away from here thinking, look, well, this is what I am going to pay now. These are just proposals. I want to make that clear, okay? What this now is to demonstrate is that when we compare the rates that people in Trinidad and Tobago pay with several countries in the Caribbean, you will see that the existing rate, which looks like kind of orange, is just over 4 US cents per kilowatt hour. Only Suriname has a lower rate than Trinidad and Tobago at the current rates. But we know that in Suriname, the level of service is very poor. So they have a lower rate, but they're getting worse service. I don't think anybody wants that. When we look at the proposed increases, it just goes to just over 5 cents. And still again, that is lower than everybody else besides Suriname. And I just told you about the Suriname experience. So if you want to compare yourself regionally, some people might not want to do that. You can see that even with a proposed increase, the rates in Trinidad and Tobago are still way below most countries in the Caribbean. One of the other things that we are proposing changes to is miscellaneous services. So you see what the miscellaneous service comprise: visits for non-payment. If you get disconnected, then they have to come back and connect you. If you want something moved, your meter moved or something, those are miscellaneous charges. So the last time miscellaneous charges moved was in 2006. That's 17 years ago. So I'm sure everybody can agree that anything from 17 years ago in terms of a price can't be relevant in 2023. So all we did is we moved the rates to what we think would be the cost of doing these services in 2023. Specifically, this is the cost for those services. There is no profit in this. It's just the cost of a crew coming to your house and doing this type of work. Okay? So, another new thing that we have in this determination relates to new people who want to become customers of T&TEC, new customers. The existing customers pay a deposit which is a non-refundable deposit. We are proposing that new customers will now be able to get the deposit refunded if there are no issues over the 1 year experience. So if you join up as a customer and after 1 year you have no issues paying your bill, you will get back your deposit. It's just that in this case, the deposit is increased from what it was to $234. And the RAC will meet with T&TEC to discuss how this thing actually is implemented. So one of the things that we do when we're setting rates is to try to determine what's the impact of rates on customers. There's a standard set by the World Bank that residential customers should not spend more or anything more than 10% of their household income on electricity. We have assessed that with respect to residential customers in Trinidad and Tobago, nobody will spend more than 3.3% of their household income on electricity. right? In fact, an interesting thing happened today. We went to talk to some commercial customers and business customers. And before we even presented this information, one of the customers said, you know, my electricity bill is 1.5% of my total cost. And that guy has a supermarket. So that's just to tell you, we're not telling stories. The commercial client, his bill is 1.5% of his total cost. And we are saying to you, the electricity that you will pay, the bill that you pay, it should not be over 10%, but we actually estimate it to be 3.3%. Okay? So that is one of the ways that we try to protect you, by ensuring that we keep these rates within the international described limits. We believe that the tariffs that we are proposing will be able to ensure that T&TEC is able to earn the revenue to finance necessary investment, right? Remember I said it up front, that is one of the things that we have to look at. And we believe that with those tariffs, they will be able to have the funding to perform their functions. So we think that those tariffs are reasonable. As I've said, we can expand on many of these things while we're back at the table and you ask your questions, because we have some information that we can provide for you. But I would like you to note that the last time that electricity rates increased was 2009, right? That's a long time ago. And even if it was that long ago, in the category which we consider to be the persons who might be less able to afford electricity, the base price is only going up by 2 cents. So I want you to keep that in mind when you ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. We now come to the interactive portion of this evening's proceedings, where we'd like to invite your questions for the head table, questions on Mr. Khan's presentation, and any other questions you may have that is related to the draft determination. So if you have a question now, you can make your way to the microphone, and we also have a roving mic. If you'd like to use the mic, the roving mic, that's no problem. So he'd like to.
President, good afternoon. Pleasant good afternoon to the head table.
Yeah, working.
Okay, my name is Ian Robley. I'm a resident of Belle Garden, and I'm happy to have you all here this afternoon. Welcome to Belle Garden. And I hope before you leave this afternoon to be a pleasant evening at Belle Garden. I am here as a member of the village council and also a villager. I have two concerns. Firstly, I must say, if I'm to rate T&TEC on a scale from 1 to 10, I'll give them about a 7. And I think the service offered by T&TEC is fairly good. It's very good, very good, I would say. And a rate increase with me, as Mr. Khan said, was 2009, and now it's 2023. So I don't have a problem with the rate increase. Once the service remains the same or even better, I welcome it. But I have two concerns. My first concern is, what is the RIC quality of standard of service that customers need to look for from T&TEC? And what mechanism T&TEC use to read domestic meters? Because I could elaborate on this one, but I would like to know what is the mechanism that you all use? Because I thought on 2 occasions T&TEC overcharged me.
So I'm going to tell you what the guaranteed standards are. GS1, restoration of supply after unplanned outage on the distribution system. T&TEC is required to restore a supply within 10 hours. If that does not happen, as a residential customer, you get $60 rebate. For any further 12-hour period where this is not restored, you get an additional $60. Okay, that's standard as one. DS2, billing punctuality. The time that your first bill must be mailed to you must be 60 days as a residential customer. Right? And if you don't get your first bill when you have a new account, then you have to get a rebate of $60. 3, reconnection of service after settling overdue amounts or payment of or agreement on a payment schedule. Within 24 hours of you paying after you've been cut off, you must be restored. If that doesn't happen, then what you are going to get is a refund of the reconnection fee. I think it was on the board, it was $246. That's what you get back, the full refund of the fee. Okay? Making and keeping appointments. You must get 24 hours notice of any inability to keep an appointment with you. If that is not done, you're going to get a rebate of $60. Voltage complaints. For a single-phase connection, within 24 hours of receiving your complaint, they must act. If they don't, $60 rebate. Correction of the problem, that must be done within 15 working days. If that is not done, you get a rebate of $60. Variation between the phase voltages of a three-phase supply that can adversely affect the customer. They must evaluate the problem within 24 hours of receiving your complaint. If that is not done, rebate of $60. To effect corrective action, that must be a mutually agreed time between you and the company. So if they agree with you and they don't turn up, you get $60. Responding to billing and payment queries, they must give you a substantive reply within 15 working days. If they fail to do that, $60 rebate. Capital works, execution of capital works. Within 30 meters where no construction works on the part of the service provider is required. So if they can connect you without putting up a new pole or anything like that, the survey must be done in 3 working days. If they don't do it, $60 for you. You must install the service drop-on meter within 3 working days. If that is not done, $60 rebate to you. Within 100 meters where construction works are required by T&TEC, you must complete the survey in 3 days. Same $60. They must give you an estimate in 5 days. If they don't do that, $60. They must complete the work in 15 working days. If they don't do that, $60. It has to be installed within 3 days. If they don't do that, you get $60. So these are the kinds of things that you need to know, so that if any of these things happen and you don't get the service that you expect, you can claim. And just think about it. Some people's bill is not even $60. If you have a problem, you get back a rebate of $60. We have, I think we have some clouds there. We have that there, so you can get one from behind there. And T&TEC is supposed to have that up in all of the service centers. So when you go in there, you should be able to read that in T&TEC service centers. And you had another question, was it? Well, right now, I think they have AMI, which is automatic metering infrastructure. So they don't know, before they used to estimate bills, right? But they don't do that anymore. And in most cases, they can read it remotely.
Okay, concerning the AMI, that is something that happens within the community on the wall.
I can't explain how it's done, no? But you can. You're not familiar.
Twice.
Look, we got one of our staff is going to tell you.
Yeah. Yes. Twice my bill is normally about $200, and twice my bill went up to $6 something. And I went into the office in Scarborough and explained to the lady who was in the front, the chemical person to the front there. And she went back, she checked the system, and it was correct. I said, Miss, no, something is wrong. I said, because I did not add any appliances to my house. Nothing was added. And my bill went up to $600. I said, that might be for nearly three by monthly thing. So she said, no, it was correct. I said, well, okay, well, I have no other avenue to get redressed. I have to pay my bill. It came the next by monthly again, same $6 something. I said, nah, something is wrong. I said, because I don't pay that kind of bill. And for some reason, she said it's correct. And the third quarter, it came back to the 200.
But you made
And
one,
up to this day, I pay 200.
you make one mistake, you know. You said that you have no other avenue for redress.
But I didn't know where to go.
Oh, well, all right. So
now you are here. That's why I want to get all the information. So the document that you read from, I would keep one.
okay.
I would have one.
I want to share some information with you on that specific point. Between 2012 and 2022, customers who had billing queries, like you, with T&TEC, the RIC investigated those with T&TEC, and customers were refunded $3.5 million. So, well, I don't. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you that if you had a problem and you came to us and it was investigated, you might have received your refund. Well, there is a time limit, but I don't know. I can't tell you what it is now. You know? Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for your question. I just wanted to also make a note that we are live on Facebook and on YouTube, and we do have persons viewing there. We do have questions coming in, so from time to time I will just, try to represent the persons who are viewing live on the RIC's Facebook page. Sir, you have a question?
All right, so good evening to the members of the RIC. Let me take this opportunity quickly to welcome you to beautiful Tobago East. I am following the series of consultations that you are having. And let me jump off by saying, based on what Mr. Khan presented to us a while ago, it's come perlusively clear now for me, not knowing before the facts and what you presented, all right? I just want to ask the question very early. Why you want to move from every other month to monthly bills? First of all, I want to ask that question straight up. Why?
So the idea of going to the monthly billing is really to improve cash flow planning. From a T&TEC perspective, if they get their payments regularly, same amount more or less every month, that's going to be helpful to them. And we also know that now that the bills may increase, we think it's also going to be helpful to our consumers, because they also can just decide on, or maybe budget for the fixed amount every month, as opposed to receiving what may be a higher bill every 2 months. So that's the thinking behind that.
Well, Madam Chair, I respectfully disagree with that. Mm-hmm. That may be accurate for a category of people. Mm-hmm. I think that you should review that, should look at that, because it does not cover, or it does not reflect for everyone. We do have other low-income people in this country, and we should consider that. I may not have a problem with it, me personally, but I cannot speak for everyone else in this hall, all right? I really, really do think that the RIC should move everything from T&TEC to TSTT, all of them, monthly. That is too much. Listen to me, the rate increase that Mr. Khan explained, and I looked up on the website and I saw where we here in Trinidad and Tobago, much people don't read it, so we'll have a problem for most people not understanding the last time rate went up. Mm-hmm. And if I were to summarize T&TEC performance, and by the way, I am living in the West, and I came all the way from Scarborough for a 5 o'clock meeting. And I was here at 4 minutes past 4 for a 5 o'clock meeting. Time is very important with me. So I may not get to ask all the questions, but I just want to touch on a few. And what's brought me to come to this meeting this evening is because I had an issue with T&TEC today. I have 2 bills for this month alone. And I had to literally run to T&TEC this morning to make noise with them, to justify why. 2 bills in this month alone. All right? Well, the girl explained, and, we have gotten past that one. All right? So I was glad for that. I did not know you all would have been here today, honestly. And I said, I'm not sitting home and just take what I hear people say. So I want to get it from the Southeast Board. So Mr. Khan explain in detail, and I don't need to...
Can I just tell you one other thing? So there are times when a customer may run into a little bit of difficulty in paying the bills. And one of the things that T&TEC does is to change that customer to a monthly payment so that each month it is softer for them to meet that commitment. So we also were thinking about that. In as much as the total amount might be higher, we also thought it would be easier for persons to just budget and pay that amount every month. But we could be persuaded. We've heard different comments. Some persons looking forward to it. Other persons have a concern. And so if you can elaborate a little bit more why you think it may be very difficult, particularly for a low-income person, to do it every month.
I could go straight off the cost of living. We're still living on 2013 salary as a public servant, and I could go on, and you know what are the issues there. To add another bill per month, Madam Chair, that is too much. I am telling you, it may only sound as low as 2 cents more. But for some people, a majority of the people, a large section, I would like you, the RIC, to share with us here, if possible, at the end of all these consultations, the category of people in terms of percentage, monthly earners, fortnightly earners, and you'll see exactly a clearer picture that I'm coming with. But I want to move away from that for now, and I'll wait until everybody make the presentation. I want to deal with the issue of giving T&TEC more money. Now, if you have a cut on your foot or anyway, and it's bleeding, what would you take? Is it the proper procedure to clean it and dress it properly, or you think it's just to put plaster over it and cover it up? So T&TEC bleeding or whatever is poor management. Poor management in a lot of the utility areas. It boils down to poor management. I am sure, if we were to plug those gaps in terms of clean up the system, whether we have overstaff or whatever we have in T&TEC, just like in WASA, I am sure we'll have a better or efficient service. The next thing I want to deal with very quickly, Mr. Khan mentioned it. Now, when the officers visit your property...
Let me just address, as you've touched on the point about efficient service. So the RIC is going to ask you to pay rates for efficient service. We are not going to really speak on behalf of T&TEC, and maybe there are inefficiencies there, but if they are not going to be passed through to you for your rates. When we look at the cost details that they provided to us, you heard that we have reduced what they've presented, the 29 billion over the 5 years. That was reduced to 27 billion, and the reduction had to do with us looking at inefficiencies and saying we will not ask anybody to pay for that. So that is not affecting the rates that you're being asked to pay.
I was just looking...
One second, sir. Just be reminded that to make your contribution in a timely manner so that we could get everybody, you will be able to come back later on if there is no problem. Okay?
I prefer to ask all my questions, if you don't mind, because sometimes the mind tends to run. I have a lot to deal with when the day comes, and I've watched many of your consultations, and I'm not trying to give you a difficult time. I've just been respectful to you by saying, please allow me the opportunity to make my presentation. I have over 40 questions, but I will not ask 40 questions. Right. I have a conscience.
So we will take one
you could come back again,
as you're on the floor. And
okay, so let's make this final one.
Yes.
And
for now.
I could talk all evening.
No. This is the final for now. As we go around the room, we can come back to you. We just want to be fair to everyone here and respectful of everybody's time. We know you came very early, but other persons would also like an opportunity to
Madam Chair, I will give way to that, but I am not happy about that at all. I am not happy about that. Others came in late. And that is not my issue, that is not my fault, but I will give way to that. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Please state your name and where you're from.
I'll do that. But I must say good afternoon to the head table, good afternoon to those on social media, and good afternoon to those in the house. My name is Adina Campbell, and I live right here at Belle Garden, right to the back there. My question is not about the rates, but is that other question about T&TEC and some laws that they have. I don't know if you can look into that, but I would need you to look into that. T&TEC has a pole on my land connecting somebody else. It's there for years. I never give them permission, but the pole is there, giving the neighbor connection. And I had a problem with him, with trees I have there. Tell him to cut them, he wouldn't cut them, he wouldn't trim them. Anyway, I had cause to cut a road. And when I go into T&TEC had the audacity to tell me, Adina, that in order for me to get my trees cut, if my neighbor doesn't agree to drop his line, I can't get that done. And to remove the pole is going to take a process. And that wouldn't happen. No. I had to try to get around that to cut it. And may I tell you, the connection line is hanging low down. Okay? They asked, well, if I could make a compromise with them. I said, okay, the neighbor will drop the pole and I will drop the line and I will get it done. The neighbor went with me and agreed. And lo and behold, when they turn up, he gone away and answer his phone. And up to now, he didn't come for them to drop the line. So they had to drop it in front and the line to the back. I had to cut my road, elsewhere turn it around, and the line is still hanging down there. Is that fair to me? Can you all do something about that? Who make the laws? If that T&TEC going to say, if the neighbor don't drop it, if the line passing through my land, I never give consent, and he didn't give consent, and up to today, the line is still there and it's hanging down. Dangerous. I'm old. I'm 75. If I'm passing, they have to run to pass below it because I don't want the line to fall on me. Please, can you help?
Thank you, ma'am.
So we have encountered this problem before, and I think certainly we're particularly for our more senior citizens, I really do have a great deal of empathy when I hear these sort of examples and whatever is being suffered. And particularly, I'm also hearing that there's a safety aspect to it. And I know that that is one of those things that we call core values and really objectives we try to achieve in this type of business where the whole process could be quite dangerous. So what I can take away for you, remember, we are not really T&TEC, we can't speak on their behalf, but similar to what I did in another meeting, and the T&TEC assured me that they would follow up. We also put somebody from the RIC to follow up, that T&TEC is following up. I will have your details taken, phone number and all the rest of it, and I will contact senior officials at T&TEC and ensure that they come out and address it for you. At least press upon them to do so. Yes?
They made the laws on the own. I thought you all was incorporating in them making the laws as how we're incorporating with them raising the rates.
No, we don't.
How come they could make a law like that?
Right.
How come?
Well, what we were advised, even just coming out from these consultations, I learned that there's a section of T&TEC Act, and the Act is a fairly old Act. That's what they're operating under, and that Act allows them to make decisions in a way what you would say is merely meant to be for the greater good of the community. Sometimes the particular decision may impinge on an individual, but we feel that T&TEC must be in a position to come out. I think in your situation, from the facts I heard, certainly sounded as if you had a reasonable compromise with them, but they must follow up and ensure that your environment is safe. Okay, so we will take your details, and I will speak to the senior officials in T&TEC, provide that information to them, leave your phone number as well, and I will pass that on to them. and we will follow up with you and with T&TEC to see how it's being addressed. Not at all, not at all. Thank
Next
you very
question,
much.
please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Rosemary Sandy. I'm from Candy, Tobago. I just wanted to find out, the RIC has an office in Tobago, or are you planning to open an office sometime soon? And I work in Scarborough, and around where I live, where I work, we have every day at least today, I counted about 15 dips in electricity. And I call in T&TEC, they check and they say something with the pole or transformer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't anything they could do unless we pay for a new transformer. And that is they told me the cost is about $54,000. And I don't think we should have to pay for that. So I want to know what we could do to reduce.
All right. Well, I will
Thank you, ma'am.
talk to her about the visits that we used to pay.
Yeah, so, remember we spoke about these outages being between 3 and 29, and you said you experienced 15 trips. So it went out completely, or it just
The
dipped?
voltage.
Okay, so that's a voltage fluctuation problem, so it's a frequency problem. So it's something that you have to, they said that, you said that they told you that you need to buy a transformer? That's another issue to get a little more detail on, because from what you tell me, I can't respond to you in a way that could satisfy you. So we'll to take your details also, and somebody will talk to you to hear a little more about the problem to see how we can get to the end of it, right? Because I can't respond to you about it with the information I've heard. The chairman could respond to that part.
This is the second time we have that question for today. And I was informed by my RIC colleagues that the RIC would send persons here to do customer outreach, what we call customer outreach. They sent them once a quarter, this is before the pandemic, and sometimes only one person would come into the office during the period they were there, even though it was well advertised and so on. So from a cost standpoint, it really would not seem to be the best approach to put an entire office here. But it's something that I've taken away to think about whether we should really send someone for maybe 2 days a month. And of course, what we learned during the pandemic is that we can contact each other without a physical presence. So there is the electronic system, and we want to maybe publicize that a little bit more. So somewhere between those two possibilities, because, setting up an entire office may turn out not to be the most cost-effective solution. And because we ask our service providers to be cost-efficient and the like, we also take on the responsibility to demonstrate that in the decisions we make. Right? So somewhere we'll find a suitable, cost-effective solution.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. You did mention electronic media and that sort of thing, and we do have a question from our Facebook user, Mrs. Patricia Batiste, and she said her question to the panel is, why, when a person is renting, they have to pay a commercial instead of residential bill?
What is she renting?
No, she said she's renting a property, a house, and she has to pay a commercial bill instead of a residential bill. And she just wants to know if there's some kind of arrangement of why she would have to do that.
That is a strange question which I can't understand, so I can't respond intelligently to it.
So I will ask Ms. Batiste to send some further details for us.
Well, it seems if she is indeed getting a commercial bill, I don't know if that premises is being used as a commercial facility sometime in the past. and they just have not changed the category, yeah? But most persons who are renting a residential place, they are paying a residential rate. She can certainly send more information. She may be in the wrong category, and if she sends that information, we can follow it up for her.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any further questions from the...
The guy in the yellow.
You could use his standard mic as well.
You could use the standing mic in the middle of the room. Yeah, sure. Go on.
Good evening again. I was here yesterday and I'm back here again. My name is Pete Gray. I'm a resident of the Bonaccord Crown Point area. And the reason why I'm back is that a lot of persons were really, I think they were unclear of what the RIC role and function is. So they are basically associating you and the government, T&TEC, as one organization, right? So my suggestion is that Mr. Glenn, the presentation that you made earlier, you should make that a bit more interactive so persons can really understand what the RIC is about, because that's a big misconception.
Thank you.
And I think it will make your guys' job a lot easier.
Thank you for that, yes.
Thank you.
Well, from time to time, we like to, when we come out to these meetings or when we have the other special interest group meetings, we, and you would have heard it at the beginning of the presentation as well, we like to underscore that we are an independent organization. As I told some of the persons we met with today, we follow what's happening in the news, we're informed. Some of us might consider ourselves to be news junkies, so we do all of that. But when we come to make our decisions, we do that with an independent mindset. So we're going to take that suggestion and further clarify it, but we have really been doing our best to make that distinction between ourselves and the other stakeholders. So thank you very much for the suggestion.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening to the head table, Madam Chairman, and all of us congregated here. My name is Max James. I'm a resident of Belle Garden here in Zion Hill. I am a business owner, a former assemblyman and secretary for Consumer Affairs, Labor and Cooperatives. So I believe I'm well placed to respond to the policies you're trying to develop. And I hope that you would take my concerns very seriously. I recognize that the rate increases are coming at a time where there's significant social confusion, poverty, and there's a widening gap between the rich and the poor. If I were to digress a little bit and say to the chairman, because the language that you use, where it comes to Tobago, everything is so expensive for you to come here, and you diminish Tobago to one or two persons. My political persuasion is that those terms have traditionally been offensive. Where it comes to Tobago, we are underemphasized. In that context, you might do you perhaps want to consider moving your entire office to Tobago and see how it feels to Trinidadians? I once told a girlfriend of mine in Trinidad, when I say girlfriend, we study together and so forth, how would you feel if we were to move the capital from Port of Spain and put it in Tobago, Scarborough, capital of the country? She was offended. How could we do that? So that when you're doing your considerations and your research, you must consider Tobago as half of the country, and perhaps the larger half of the country, considering our large oil reserves and gas reserves. The COVID brought on, in my opinion, by the Prime Minister, would have disseminated the social fabric of Tobago. In fact, I lost one of my businesses and had to retool and regroup and all of that. Now, these rate increases are coming at a time where it is difficult to meet operating costs and to live comfortably because of wrong policy. Even yesterday, the Prime Minister at the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference, he didn't give us much hope. I was just on my cell phone trying to read his part of his speech again. And from what the Prime Minister has stated, that renewable energy is still a far way off and oil is still king. So we do not look the future or the immediate future of getting some kind of reprieve from these onerous increases across the sphere in Tobago and Trinidad doesn't augur well for the poor man. And against that backdrop, Madam Chairwoman and other members and the staff and your consultant who there in the grade that informs perhaps much of your decision making, is that you need to take the Tobago case as a special case. In the Tobago Houses of Assembly Act, there is a case or a legal mechanism that speaks to Tobago being a special case. We've had several increases of gasoline and diesel. We have several increases across the board. And the cost of living arguably is about 30% greater in Tobago than in Trinidad. I make the argument that because we are in a disadvantaged position and because of the whole situation of poverty in the country as it stands today, that the RIC has an inherent duty, has a duty to consider a different rate increase for Tobagonians. Considering our oil, our gas, and when I say you all, I don't mean you at the head table. I have no quarrel with you just doing a job. But I want to persuade you to consider the contribution of Tobago to this economy. Because the Trinidadians take all our oil and gas, fix up Trinidad, and Tobago suffers. Those are the facts. There's no fair share. Considering our 30% higher income bracket or situation, increases in gas, diesel, and the rest of it, and you foist another increase upon Tobagonians, it is patently unfair. And I think you must take this suggestion to go back to your considerations that would define or justify your proposed rate increases. It can't be certain things for Trinidad or certain kinds of a standard of living for Trinidadians and a different standard of living for Tobagonians, and we call it one country. The Tobago House of Assembly was established to deal with all of these matters that you are dealing with. How many members from Tobago constitute your board? Maybe Mr. Sandy, I think he's the only one. Why can't we say, for instance, have how many members constitute the RIC?
We have 7 commissioners.
7? Mm-hmm. Can't we say 5 from Tobago and 2 from Trinidad? 2, I mean, we've been living at a lopsided arrangement all these years. So Tobagonians can influence you, understand our plight, and make a different set of recommendations. Unless Mr. Sandy, my colleague, we went to school together. I can't say certain things, I don't want to offend him. All right. However, the fact of the matter is that I don't know whether he's an effective minority. I hope he is an effective minority. But it doesn't seem so. I don't want to tell him that he's part and parcel of this debacle that Tobago finds itself, where you're going to grab the rates for us. It just doesn't cut it, commissioners. It doesn't. But as a policymaker, public officers will come to me when I was a secretary and say all the nice things. You know, people have the degrees like to sound nice. I will tell them, listen, your duty is not to foist pain on the population and to make it very hard for the population. Your duty when you bring recommendations to me is to make them easier for the population, not hard, and to tell me how bright you are. All of us went to university and have our degrees and master's degrees and all of that. I'm not interested in that so much, except for those technical abilities that will make it easier for the population. And even as simple as reading the electricity bill, as qualified as I might be, and my wife is, it's very difficult. A word for that is what people in the academics will say esoteric. Very not easily intelligible. So we have to start there, just as an aside, to make that bill very easy to read. There are single parents who are not well educated, are old people, grandmothers, and they can't understand. The children are not even here. So we begin to look at the bill, make it. I don't want to know how a public officer is sending to you something that even an intelligent person can't read, can't understand. So we have to find all those symbols and abbreviations and all of that. Make it simpler so people can understand clearly. It is difficult to read and to understand. What Jack Warner said, I tell you. So we have to change the way how we do things. So I heard you on the whole question of due diligence and the inefficiencies of T&TEC would not be passed on to the consumer. I'm not so sure about that. How many workers does T&TEC really need? We have seen TSCT downsize. I don't want them to cut me off tomorrow or something and they can't respond, but they're saying, have we really done our right sizing or true sizing of T&TEC before you begin to foist these increases on us? Can we have a better arrangement with the oil and gas, the power generation side of T&TEC? Better arrangement, a better cost arrangement. Can you go back and consider that? I'm putting that out there to you.
So would you like to pause and come back a little later? Because
I'm almost done. I won't be. Give me that privilege as for who I am. I'm going to ask you that. Thank you, sir. I know sometimes it goes like that. So that what these increases are going to do, are going to significant increases. Let me remove the bias.
Thank you, sir.
Is there someone that wants to replace me? Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anything on Facebook?
Hello? Right. So we do have some viewers on our live stream on Facebook at the moment, and we do have a suggestion from Mr. Sean Solomon, and I'm going to pose this to the ED. He says, has the RIC considered the removal of VAT on electricity prices or on your electricity bill, and is that something that the RIC could look at in the future?
Well, as you know, VAT is something which is administered by the government, not the RIC. So we have no jurisdiction in removing VAT at all. That would be something for MPs to impress upon the political directorate and see if they will be swayed by it. But the RIC cannot do anything about such matters. Well, we're going to take note of it and we're going to pass it to the respective places where they can do something about it. Because we can't do so, we'll pass it to the people, to the Ministry of Public Utilities, indicating that consumers at our consultations were making this request that VAT be removed. So we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We have another question. Good afternoon, sir. Please just state your name for the record. You look very familiar.
Yes, very familiar.
Top of the evening to everyone. My name is Curtis Harry.
Hello.
Madam Chair, your problem is solved. there wouldn't be any conflict of interest because I'm retired. So you can get the services of an ex-T&TEC worker to represent RIC in Tobago, to police T&TEC. You don't have to look for an office. I can work from home. So that money that you'll be taking to pay the rent will come to Curtis. Right. I went back to the drawing board last night. The money that you'll be collecting with the new increase, the money that you'll be collecting based on the old rate that I suggested to do the monthly from about June to the end of December at the old rate. If you calculate that money from the customers, the domestic customers, what about the money that the government and the teacher offices owed? That will be superior to the domestic customers, even though you implement the new rate this year. I know what I'm speaking about. So, Madam Chair, that is something that is a suggestion that you can take into consideration.
Just for clarity, can you repeat it? You're saying use monthly billing from June.
At the old rate.
Monthly billing at the old rate.
At the old rate. Okay. And then from next year, 2024, you implement the 5 to the 20% and then 25, 26, and declare what you want to implement for the domestic customers from the 15 to the 64%.
Okay, so let me just say it in another way. So if currently you are paying $200 by monthly,
yes,
you'll now be paying $200 per month?
If what?
If currently you're paying $200 by monthly,
yes,
you now pay $200 per month. Is that what you're suggesting?
No.
Well, I just want to be clear.
No. Right? So if you collect the money from all these state agencies, right? The money that you'll be getting from the domestic customer will be not even a drop in the bucket as against the state agencies. And T&TEC will meet the operating costs. So you can go back now to the drawing board and see exactly what I'm speaking about.
Well, I think maybe I could shed a little bit of light for you on that. So the first thing I would say that we've repeated many times is that the amount owing to T&TEC by those state agencies, those have been treated in a way that is not going to affect any consumer's proposed rates. We've treated with that because T&TEC also has money owing to someone else. We netted that off. In other words, we've said to T&TEC, go collect that money. Access to give you this large amount for the NGC bill. Go and collect the state receivable. Mm-hmm. We're giving you a smaller amount, right? So that's not passed on to you. But then just by way of interest, that amount is owed by the state persons. I think that amount is about 1.3 billion. And when we looked at the cost and the revenue that T&TEC collects right now, for every year, there is a gap that's larger than that $1.3 billion. So even if we put it against that or added it to that revenue, there is still a gap that T&TEC is facing, right? So it's still not going to solve the problem that we have. Yeah, I don't know if you understand the details.
Madam Chair, I understand you clearly, but yes, you got to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. Is it, just imagine, a domestic customer owes T&TEC, mm-hmm, and T&TEC busting the truth for non-payment. Mm-hmm. But when the state agencies owe, and are speaking of knowledge, I know, mm-hmm, the crew went to disconnect a particular hotel in Tobago. Mm-hmm. By the time the guy pulled the fuses and coming down the pole, a phone call came in, reconnect the customer. That is not right. So this is what I am saying. You all have to put down your feet on T&TEC to collect this money that is outstanding. You see the hospital? I could understand that. Lives, the generator, whatever the case may be, are given where hospitals are concerned. But the other institutions, no.
Well, I would say we've put our foot very firmly down because we are not going to fund that. So we have left that to T&TEC to make their own commercial arrangements. You know, we are not part of their organization to say, do it this way, do it that way. But the message is clear that they must do it.
And may I reiterate, if you don't collect the money from these state agencies, no rate increase.
So I just want to make one point on that. You said that what is owed to T&TEC is about $1.3 billion.
No, I said.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Madam Chair said 1.3 billion.
So I want to tell you the gap between the last year revenue and expenditure was 2.9 billion.
Right, so a shortfall of 1.6.
So even if they collect the 1.3, there's still a gap.
Yes, sir, I understand all of that, but at least they have something in the kitty. That is how I'm looking at it. Half a loaf is better than none. I do not know if you all know that saying in Trinidad, but this is in Tobago.
I thought it was a biblical term.
We'll say half a loaf is better than none in Tobago for almost everything.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Please state your name and where you're from.
I will, sir. My name is Maurice Hercules. Good night to the table. All the people that is around, good night. I'm from Belle Garden, right here. I listen the views of everybody and some of the things I had also to say. It has been clarified. But one thing I still want to say is that I find that I am a senior citizen, and the month-to-month paying of the bill, while it may be good for you, it wouldn't good for the people on the ground, because every month now they have to pay passage to go to the different areas, from a different passage to go every month, while it's every other month. So it will be costing more on the poor people. And I think that for the lower class, I think you should leave it as it is. That is my personal view, and I hope that you all will accept that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
know, we've had similar comments, and we're keeping the pulse on these comments as the case might be, and we will certainly take your argument and the inconvenience that you are likely to suffer. We'll take that into account. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Yes. Well, very interestingly enough, right, at another meeting today, we were actually told that some people are now going to switch to online and to pay. Not in your case. I'm not saying in every case. So that's why I would say, we have to take everything into account, maybe try to get more persons to switch there. And then just to give the assurance that as we hear these concerns and comments, we're going to ask T&TEC later in the rate review. They're kind of accumulating. We're hearing some of them several times. So we're going to ask T&TEC to interface with the public, do a public education program, hear the concerns and address them. They may not come with us, They may come on they're likely to come on our own, because we are now trying with the suggestion we have to make a separation and for people to understand who we are. So we are unlikely to come with them, but we will certainly ask them to make that kind of effort to educate the public and to take some of the concerns. All right? Just before I take the next person, Ms. Campbell? Yes, I didn't see you giving the information or anybody coming to take it from you. Oh, all right. No, I just don't want you to forget it, right? So we can do it at the end. We want to make sure we do it before you leave. All right? Thank you very much. Let me take the next person. Sure, go right ahead. So,
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon again, and I am Adina Campbell. And I am thinking that I have a little suggestion. I don't know how it will work out, but I'm just telling you it. I find as seniors, we could get a little special rate, especially those in the bracket of 75 years and over, 75 to 80. I'm not talking about seniors, and I'm talking about the longevity ones, those of us who in that bracket, 75 to 80. I think that a special rate should be given to us. We ain't gonna live that long after that, you know. And after we die, you don't have to pay that. And it will be to just us. That if we live in a house, and like they have 2 meters, like we might have children living down below, and we on top, that is only for us on our bill, not for the children. So I'm asking you kindly, if you all could look into, not a laughing matter, I'm serious. If you all could look into that and give us a special rate, because time is hard and all we're living on is with pension. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
well, Ms. Campbell, let me be the first to wish you a long and healthy life. You are remarkable for your strength, your mental acuity for this age. I hope to follow in your footsteps. But let me say this. When we did the rate reviews, we actually were concerned with our seniors, people who we consider vulnerable. And the rate structure you heard really took that into account. The difficulty why you're not able to recognize that this was a special actually designed and targeted for those persons is because the law does not allow us to what they call discriminate and to show you that that was particular for your grouping. What the law requires us to do is to give everybody the same thing. So in a way, because we had those persons in mind, everybody is benefiting. But I can assure you that when we got the first draft and we did the internal examination and the evaluation and the debates, the commissioners were very clear that there are some persons in this country, we must make sure we protect them. And the final numbers you're seeing, those numbers reflect that. But as it is, you may not feel as special as we thought about you because we have to give everybody the same thing. Yeah?
Right. 1 second, sir. Before you go ahead, we want everybody to get a chance, okay? So, yes, you may come back, but after everyone has gotten a chance to...
So we can put it to the question.
Right?
Is there anyone else that wants to come to the microphone?
Because I knew this gentleman had to come back as well, and he was here.
Well, he doesn't
before.
seem to express an
You're
interest.
good? All right.
I don't want to get the impression that you're preventing from airing my view.
No problem, sir.
Thank you, sir. You're most kind. So on the question of the law issue that you raised, Madam Chairman, that was not my first point in my coming back here, where the pensioner spoke about a different kind of tier for that age bracket. You remember the Prime Minister, it was under the UNC, I think. I can't remember which.
Sorry.
Might have been
Yeah,
the PNL.
sorry. I
And the
didn't
CFIT.
sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Oh, I came back here. Max James.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. James, I just want to tell you something that would be very helpful so that we can answer your questions, right? By policy, we do not comment on political statements. No, I'm just saying. Some of the context you're providing and some of the preface, they really are political in nature, and we cannot comment on those. That's our policy. So I know that you have questions. I really want to be respectful to everyone in the room. I would like to address your questions. But you see, if the preface has to do with something about somebody in the political directorate or somebody who is involved in political activities, we would not be able to address those because we have to be very clear as to who we are as the RIC. We don't engage in political rhetoric. We can't speak for T&TEC. We can't speak for the other stakeholders, yeah? So you may still choose to make your statements. I'm just saying I really would be unable to address them. So in a way, what I'm putting to you, maybe you can make the statements or you can ask a question. If there's a question free of the rhetorical content, I'll be able to answer those. Yeah?
I don't really have questions. I want to make a statement.
Oh, sure.
Make
Okay.
statements that can redefine what your recommendations are
No.
likely to
Okay,
be.
so that's fine. So
And
we
I'm
will
saying
allow you to make the statement,
Correct.
but I will not be able to respond respectfully, sir.
That's quite fine.
Thank
Once you hear it, I understand.
No, that's fine, yes.
It's designed for you to hear it.
Okay.
The issue is that you made a statement that I find to be erroneous. And that statement is where you cannot deal with age biases because everything must apply across the board. But in the same context, I cannot forget that there was a certain kind of rate diminution for people of a certain age that travel on the sea ferry. That's the point. So you yourself, Madam Chairman, quite must be careful in terms of, because I will be forced to respond to it. You yourself are guilty of what you perhaps are accusing me. We are asking, and the pension is quite respectfully asking, whether...
Mr. James?
Yes, ma'am.
The genesis of that is in our act. The genesis of how you raise the other charges in the country, I may not even know where to find those, yeah? So when I say we're required to treat persons in a particular class in the same way, it's because of the limitations we face.
No, I think what we are trying to say is for you to make the recommendation. I know you yourself can't do it, but the fact that the country has done it at the cabinet level, we are asking that you take the concerns that we are making to the relevant minister who will take it to cabinet. That's the point. We understand, and you yourself can't do it. I understand that. What I'm saying is that it is the recommendation that in just as how cabinet made a decision to give a different kind of a rate increase, a rate increase or a fair increase and a fair decrease for people of a certain age, we're asking you to do the same thing. That's all we're saying. So it has nothing to do with politics. The UNC and the PNM, I was just saying, which administration that might have made the particular arrangement.
Well, let me just make this point clear, Mr. J.
Yes, sir.
The RIC board is the only agency which sets the rates. No recommendation on rates is made to anyone. So we don't have to recommend a rate to somebody else for them to approve it. The rates are approved by the RIC's board, and that is it. So in that connection, that's what the chairman is saying. Our law confines us to treat all people in the same class equally. So we can't discriminate with people in the same class. So any support outside of that can be provided to seniors, that will have to be a government policy which the government will have to be responsible for.
And so to be very clear, you were saying the RIC cannot even make a recommendation at all.
But we can't make a recommendation about that because the RIC is responsible for setting rates. So how are we going to recommend to somebody else that our rates change when we are responsible for setting it?
Can commissioners appear before joint select committees of parliament?
The RIC does.
Well, this is the point. So you're saying there, or the appropriate forum, you can say this is what we have gleaned from our public consultations.
The only way that could change is if we change the act. So which is why the member of the
Well,
parliament
sir, as somebody who's made law in this country and industrial relations, regulations and so on, I believe it is possible. I hear you, and I thank you for clarifying this as much as you can, but I think that anybody is free to make a recommendation. It is the cabinet to say no. But I don't think you are going out of your edict to say that I can't make a recommendation. I really take a dissenting view to that. Anyhow, so I'm saying a precedent has been set, and therefore it might be useful for persons in the society who are suffering and want some kind of relief. That is all we are seeing through the consultation, sir. I want you to take into, and I'm almost finished now, that the cost, when you, please be attentive to the complaints of persons who are...
I just want to tell you, I'm going on my phone not to listen to you, but to share some information with you when you finish talking. So
Yes,
allow
sir.
me, so don't think I'm being distracted, okay?
No, I pay much attention to those things. And that's quite all right. People do what they have to do. I'm saying to you that we must take into consideration the significant distress it will cause upon persons who are doing new developments, new houses. Money is not there any longer as it used to be. And therefore, in your rate increase proposals, please consider, Mr. Consultant, in Tobago, the cost of building a home or house is about $300,000 more than in Trinidad. So, through all of this, I think we have made the case that you should consider a different rate increase for Tobagonians, even though you will see the law says something differently. There is significant precedent in areas and throughout our social lives where we pay more for everything in Tobago. And therefore, all I'm asking is a case be made, even if the case is made by my saying this and the relevant bodies will pick it up, it needs to be said that we can't, you're pauperizing us more by these kinds of rates increases. I understand the policy has to be made. I understand certain things have to be done for T&TEC to pay its way. But the whole country, from 7 years now, tremendous inequalities have been placed particularly upon Tobagonians. And therefore, we need to have a new architecture in respect of all these kinds of increases. Eventually, it will become a political issue, I suspect. However, these things need to be said, even if you can't do one flip about it. The fact of the matter is that we are thinking that you need, or even from your consultant, how could we foist these rates upon the poor people, particularly here in Tobago? It's just an inequality, it's unfair. It's increase upon increase of increase. And as the former T&TEC worker has said, collect all the monies. We know there's still a financial gap, but collect it nonetheless before you could increase and place these onerous increases upon the population, particularly in Tobago. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Let me share this
Thank you,
information.
Mr. James. No, I just said thank you. I thought there was somebody on the side who had another question, or are we winding up?
Good day again. I have a question, and it comes, I think Mr. Harry mentioned it a little bit.
Just leave that. Anything relevant right now?
Yes, I have a question. I think Mr. Harry mentioned part of it. I'm not too sure if it's information or misinformation circulating on social media that one of the reasons for the rate increase, it's because of the police and other services, that they have racked up a large bill. So the rate increase is to help to sort of collect funding on that. Can you clarify as to if that is true or not true?
Well, as I mentioned, we have taken out the outstanding amount from the rate increase. I think we could be clearer. I did not examine the details, whether it's for the police or anyone. What I did was to be fair to the customers and took it out. I don't know if it's for the police, I don't know if it's for the army. That is not relevant because we have taken them all out. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, I know we had a question from in the blue shirt. Are you okay? I know you had your hand up. Yes, you can feel free to ask your question as we wrap up.
Good afternoon to every board, members of the head table, and other members of the RIC. I don't really have a question. My name is Peter Cox, and I'm from Canaan. What I'm going to say is just based on what I heard this afternoon about customers going into T&TEC, and the bill would have been, let's say, $100, and T&TEC say, well, look, it's $300, and obviously there's something going on there. Would it be possible that if I go in to pay a bill and they say the bill is more than I think that it should be, or I thought it would be, is there something that we could put on hold until we rectify that?
Oh, yes.
And also, not just T&TEC, but I'm talking down the road, WASA, TSTT, etc., without my service being disrupted.
Yes. It is currently so. If you have a complaint and it's not resolved, T&TEC cannot cut you off while that complaint is unresolved.
Okay, and do I have to pay that bill that I'm being asked to pay at the time, or could that...
Well, it's in dispute, so you don't have to pay it because you're trying to resolve the issue.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Let me just add that, you gave a few examples, including TSTT. We have absolutely no jurisdiction over TSTT. So while this may be true, what you just heard may be true for T&TEC and WASA, you would have to ask the persons who regulate or supervise TSTT or even TSTT themselves to get that part of your question clarified. So we don't want you to not pay the TSTT bill because we don't know what the repercussions would be. All right? Thank you.
For the information, I want to say that I received a bill last year for $900. And I went to Roxborough and I told them, well, look, I am not a business person. And they rectified for me. They told me I don't have to pay nothing, wait, and they will send me a fresh bill and they take the information. And I was satisfied that they did their job.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing with the other persons. Again, we don't make those policies, but I think it's very interesting that there are other experiences that could be shared. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I would now like to invite our chairman, Mrs. Dawn Callender. I know we had some previous questions.
Any Facebook? We finish on Facebook?
Yes. Well, I know we had some previous questions from consultations yesterday from Tobago West and some from Trinidad, and the chairman would like to respond to those persons. She did promise to get some responses for some of the people who are at our consultations, and you all will have the benefit of hearing some of her responses as well. Chair?
Thank you very much. So in the consultation we had last week, Thursday, in ARIMA, we had a question about section 6(1)(d) as to whether the Commission may and have exercised such function, powers, and duties as are imposed on it by this Act, and in particular, carry out studies of efficiency and economy of operation and of performance by service providers and publish the results thereof. So I am pleased to inform you that the RIC, in fact, does perform those acts. And such a study, for example, is the T&TEC Annual Performance Indicator Report. And some of these reports have a lot of operational and financial information. And that information is published on the RIC website, www.ric.org.tt. We encourage persons to go to our website and see some of the information there. We had another question concerning licensing, and this is section 1, A and B of the Act, that states that the Commission may have and exercise such functions, powers, and duties as are imposed on it by this Act, and in particular, advise on the Minister on matters relating to the operations of this Act, including the granting of license, administers such matters as are required consequent upon the grant of the license. And I can tell you that we have in fact done that work I think it was June 2021, we completed a full review of advising the minister as it pertained to the granting of license and so we do also fulfill and have fulfilled that section of the Act. We had 3 questions related to can somebody survive on $55 a month. We know that there are some persons who have this level of consumption, some basically by necessity. Just wish to remind that persons who fall within that category would also be eligible for the Utility Assistance Program, and basically their rates would be satisfied by an average of $100 a month. But for $55, or the closest amount, we came to $58. But still, this bill would be covered by that program. So that person can utilize an 18 cubic foot refrigerator, a microwave, a fan, 4 light bulbs, a washing machine, and a computer or some sort of other mobile device. Okay, so we were asked, what could somebody get for that? Now, given what we have been computing and saying, well, these rates are somewhere between 4 and 5% of somebody's salary, just to note that someone like that may be earning quite a modest amount of money of about $2,000 a month. But there is a program, certainly from the electricity perspective, that person's bill would be covered. We had another example of what happens for $100. This person may be able to afford a larger refrigerator, 22 cubic foot refrigerator, a microwave, a computer, washing machine, a fan, electric kettle, and 6 bulbs. Again, this person's level of consumption is around $100. They can benefit from the Utilities Assistance Program. This would be someone else whose bill would be settled. The other person who I said maybe that person is earning perhaps $2,000 or so for the month. This person might be somebody who might be earning, just using the mathematics and going backwards, this person might be earning something like $3,000, $3,500, right? Can take on quite a bit of electricity there. We had a question when we visited the radio yesterday, Radio Tambran. We met with DJ Sticks, and he asked us $420 a month is his bill. And again, he was asking, well, on average, can you share with citizens what you can do with that money? So this person, again, 22 foot cubic fridge, microwave, computer, washing machine, better iron. This iron is taking more electricity. The plasma TV, shower heater, kettle. This person is likely to be able to afford a dryer as well, a lot more bulbs, and as well a small AC. Right, so we're just providing this information because we're getting these types of questions. So we've provided the answers, but as well, you can take your particular bill and go to our bill computing station and have an idea. You know what you enjoy, have an idea what your new rate is likely to be. Right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And
Let me just
Sure.
add one thing.
Sure.
When Peter asked the question about if you had a bill which you were contesting, the customer service manager just informed me that we normally suggest to the customer that they pay their normal bill in good faith, right? So that you don't pay the new bill, but you pay your normal bill in good faith while that is going on, okay? Well, yeah, so I just got that from the customer services manager telling me you pay a normal bill, and while the other thing is being checked, yeah, so you won't be cut off. Yeah, right, while they're doing their checking. Yeah. Yeah.
Microphone.
Yeah, I have one other concern. On the other you all had, you all mentioned that you could work with your bill, so you could get the new rates adjusted. So I have my bill here, so I like to get my new rates adjusted.
Yeah, just to
and one other concern, T&TEC has a way of not settling customers' claims. I could remember, not me, my sister, where she's living, it had a fire on the pole, and the fire ran from the pole and come down to her line and cut the current off and then damage her TV and whatever. And when T&TEC came, they did all the repairs, repaired back everything, and when she told him what happened to her television, T&TEC now looking into every law, every line to make sure she was correct with everything in her house before they want to buy back a TV for my sister. And because there are some laws that your house matter, like every 5 years, why your house something like that? Every 5 years, I don't know how much of us abide by that law. Inspected. Right. I don't know how much of us abide by inspecting your house every 5 years. So you have to look into everything. And when they reach upon what she didn't do, they block she right it, which is very unfair. Because I can't remember hearing anybody going to T&TEC, especially in Tobago, with those, like especially domestic customers, with those kind of complaints and get something. They look into every law, every line, and once they catch one, they bust their truth, which is very unfair to us. So I heard Madam Chairman on one of the programs before say that they started some claim for you, and you were not in the RIC as yet, because we follow everything, we follow everything on TV. And you were not in the RIC, and they started your complaint as, luckily for you, but for the majority of us, no, they don't do it. They don't. From a domestic customer, we go handle he. And I spoke to a worker in T&TEC, and he said they are very advantageous because they know the small man can't really take them too far legally. They just what they want with the small man.
So I want to just give you a little information on that, right? Between 2012 and 2022, customers who had damaged appliances claim they were refunded $167,708 by T&TEC. Now, I can't tell you how many were from Tobago, how many from Trinidad, but that's the quantum of refunds that people who had damaged appliances got from T&TEC over that 10-year period.
Those who had the inspection. Ask you, because they need that fine print down there, where you're going to sign. You have once you owe.
No, but I just told you how many people got back their money. You know.
Madam Chair.
So just 1 minute. Yes.
Yeah, may I, as an ex-employee of T&TEC and with the knowledge and the experience, I used to do damaged appliance investigations.
Mm-hmm.
And for Mr. Robley, at the bottom of the inspection certificate, it said that you should re-inspect after 5 years. Not you must, you should. And the reason for this, Mr. Robley, is that the installation could break down. Sometimes house fires, they will determine by fire services an electrical fire. That is one of the reasons. Sometimes when I go by a customer to serve notice for a planned outage, and Madam Chair, I came up with that initiative in 2001, and then you all came with it after, for the 72 hours. I used to give them at least 48 hours notice. And when I go by the customer to give them the written notice, sometimes the earth is disconnected. So if they used to do the re-inspection within the 5 years as the electrical inspectorate suggested, that would have solved some of the problems where damaged appliances are concerned. I'm speaking of knowledge and experience. Have a meter that you put onto the earth and you get a reading. And if it does not read to this specification, T&TEC, we have to submit that report. The engineer on duty submit the report. The manager submits a report. And the reason why I came up with the initiative of having the town meetings is that one day I sat and I said, but Curtis, when customers have damaged appliances, they're costing T&TEC. T&TEC not compensating them for the appliance damage. And I said, how could I solve this problem? And for the customers. And I had a discussion with the manager, and I went out and I have the town meetings. I put everything in place, work with little brochures and whatever it is, to educate our customers. So, Mr. Robley, I'm sorry to hear what have happened to your sister, but let us be real and honest with ourselves. If we do not follow, we will end up in problems. And to other people here tonight, I'm doing this on behalf of T&TEC. Please get an electrician. It even goes out to commercial customers also. Get an electrician to come and check your installation to save your appliances. Because when there's a surge on the system, it looks for the weakest point, and that will be your appliances. Please, please, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We have also been requested when we visited TOP that this might be an area we advise T&TEC on, that it would really be useful for them to do some public education. So that is another takeaway. As I said, there are some areas not for our own action, but to pass on to T&TEC. And we've heard this issue coming up on at many of our meetings. As we accumulate the list, we will let them know it was one of the frequent requests. Thank you. Yes, you have another question?
It's a Toledo saying, as my grandmother would say, everything we had to do. And luckily for my sister, her appliance, the same TV that was damaged by T&TEC, voltage or whatever, it was on warranty. So we just went back to the store and said it's spoiled, and we got a new one. So Peter pay for Paul and Paul pay for all. On warranty still. The carpenter is started with it damaged. They replaced it.
So you are live.
You're not exposing your sister. I think we don't want to expose your sister. So let's wrap up. I think we've come to the end of all our questions. Thank you very much.
So you are live on Facebook, right? You were live on Facebook. I just want to also remind you all that we do have a member of our customer service department here, and if you do have a complaint that you've already lodged with T&TEC and you're not satisfied with the redress that you have received, a member of our customer service department will be able to follow up on your complaint for you and act on your behalf. So I'd like to thank you all today for attending this evening's public consultations, for all your questions, suggestions, recommendations. All of it has been noted by our technical team, and we will have responses for questions that have been provided. And also in the upcoming days, you can follow us live on Facebook. We do have new consultations in Port of Spain, Diego Martin, Chaguanas, and San Fernando coming up. We will also be meeting with special interest groups, members of the business community, trade unions, and other persons. And of course, as I mentioned, we will be streaming live every single consultation. If you have a question that you weren't able to get out here today, it's not the end. You can feel free to ask your questions again. And we also can invite questions via email, comments, comments@ric.org.tt. You can email your comments, questions, or suggestions to us. So again, I want to thank you on behalf of the Regulated Industries Commission, on behalf of our head table, for coming and sharing your views here with us today. And I would like to wish you a good evening and to get home safely. We do also have some refreshments at the table here. Please feel free to help yourself. Thank you very much.
Just one final reminder. Remember, we will return to Tobago, and on that occasion, we will be meeting with special interest group. If you are a member of such group, if you know a member of such group, please pass that information on to our corporate communications manager or one of our customer service representatives. We want to make sure we touch as many groups and persons as possible so that we have all the input to take into account. So thank you very much, and wishing you a good evening as well. Thank you.